Greetings class, Mitchell Vanling's multi-engine trip from Charlie 83 Byron's, my home airport, to Auburn, which is an airport in the mountainous area. And this is Sierra Foothills. All right. All right, so we talk about SRM. We're going to manage all our single pilot resource management. You're going to use all the resources available. Proper use of automation. My airplane has a Garmin 300 in it, but I'm assuming that the Baron 58 that I'd be using have at least a 430. The areas of risk and decision making and managing situations, we're going to do that. Task management throughout the flight. Here's ADM. We make all our decisions and while maintaining positional and situational awareness. And be extra lookout for CFIT today because there are mountains around. And we're going to manage the flight as a private pilot, multi-engine rating. Okay, maneuvering with one engine inoperative, zero thrust versus feathering. Zero thrust, the propeller is out there acting like a barn door and it's causing a huge amount of drag, versus when it's feathering, it's almost like flying a single engine airplane. It's fairly easy. We want to keep the airspeed above blue line and keep the power on the good engine set at a reasonable level so as not to kill the engine. Straight and level flight's pretty easy. We'll about a half a ball into the good engine and a 5-degree bank into the good engine. And turns into the inoperative engine are easier because the power is coming from the opposite side, whereas turns away from it are more difficult, require more rudder and aileron use. But when I was doing that on my check ride, I made sure that I kept the turns very shallow. Climbs and descents. Climbs are pretty slow since we have lost about 80% of our performance, and descents are pretty standard. Just you can pull the power back on the good engine, and as long as you keep your speed up, you're fine. And the bank angle for best performance is the 5 degrees into the good engine. And here's here's the Baron 58 V speeds. We got a red VMC is 81 knots and VYSC is 100 knots. It's good numbers to keep in the front of your mind. An effect on drag and single performance. The airspeed, we lost 80 to 90% of our performance, so airspeed is at a premium. Do everything we can to keep blue line. The gear will help with control of the airplane, stability of the airplane, but has a large amount of drag. Same with the flaps. The flaps help with stability, but cause a lot of drag. So we're not going to lower the flaps of the gear until we're on short final when landing is assured. And the propeller, if it's not feathered and it's windmilling out there, it makes your day a whole lot tougher because the amount of rudder forces required to overcome that it's a real killer. Okay, performance charts applicable to single engine operations. The takeoff, climb, one engine operative, and it's kind of hard to see this chart, but it's I got it from the Baron 58 POH, and basically it says at sea level on a standard day you're going to get 500 feet a minute. So if we're going to the mountains and it's hot, it's not going to happen. So again, I think that a twin piston engine airplane, using it in the summer into hot areas is still not a great idea. I don't think that's what they're designed for. It's just my opinion though. And then the engine climb is here is actually where it's 500 feet a minute, but they're all based on sea level and standard day temps. And as soon as the temperature goes up, as soon as the elevation goes up, you can see the speeds get lower, and the same with the weight. The feet per minute get lower. All right, so partial power loss considerations. I'm going to treat it the same as a failure. I'm going to do the drill. Mixtures, props, throttles, full forward, flaps up, gear up, identify, verify, and not necessarily feather, but I'm going to monitor that engine for sure. And then I'm not going to feather unless it fails. I'm just going to monitor it. And then takeoff emergencies, a good takeoff brief. My takeoff brief is pretty standard for me. We're taking off runway 02 today, and if we have any problems on the runway, we're going to stop on the runway. If we're already flying, we have an engine problem, we're going to put it back on the runway. If we're unable to do that, we will get the gear up, the flaps up, and climb out as best we can at VYSE. So that's my brief, and so that's part of my takeoff planning. And engine failure on takeoff, before VMC, I'm going to stop on the runway, max brakes, and stop on the runway, stop the aircraft on the runway. This is a note from the POH. Immediate landing is advisable regardless of takeoff weight. Continued flight cannot be assured if takeoff weight exceeds weight determined from the takeoff weight graph. Higher takeoff weights will result in loss of altitude while retracting landing gear and feathering the propeller. Continued flight requires immediate pilot response to the following procedures. So that's the drill, basically. So I highly recommend everybody memorizing the drill, and I think everybody's going to do it when we're doing their check ride. So engine failure immediately after liftoff. If we have a runway left, we're going to put it right back on a runway, max brakes, and stop the aircraft. If engine fails on climb outs, which it always does on check rides for some reason, we're going to do the drill. Mixtures, props, throttles, full forward, slowly and accurately. Make sure we do that. Mixtures, props, throttles, full forward, flaps up, gear up, identify dead leg, dead engine, and then we're going to feather that propeller as soon as we can. And engine failure en route, and we have a drift down. We're going to find a place to land. We're going to call ATC and tell them we need a place to land immediately. Identification of inoperative engines. The engine's going to yaw and roll towards the dead engine. It's going to require lots of rudder into the good engine to keep heading. Exhaust gas temperature will obviously be lower, and the inclinometer will be out to the side because the aircraft will be slipping. And that's what the problem with the VMC roll is. You get too far this way, you lose rudder authority, and the airplane go whoop. Not a good day. So feathering, securing an inoperative engine. Memory items, the drill. Mixtures, props, throttles, full forward, flaps up, gear up, identified, verified, dead foot, dead engine, partially retard the throttle on the dead engine, no change, feather the prop, adjust power, and pitch for blue line. Pitching for blue line is the first thing you do also, so you want to make sure that you keep that blue line. Okay, in-flight engine start procedures. This is from the Baron POH. Fuel selector valve on, throttle set approximately quarter travel. Mixture full rich below 5,000, half travel above 5,000. Aux fuel pump on the low. Magnetos check on. And this airplane has unfeathering accumulator, so move the propeller, control the full forward to accomplish unfeathering. Use the starter momentarily if necessary. Return to control the high-pitch, low RPM position when the windmilling starts to avoid overspeed, because that motor will spin up quick. When the engine starts, adjust the throttle, propeller, and mixture controls. You want to pull the RPMs back until the engine gets warm. Aux fuel pump off when reliable power has been regained. Alternator switch on, oil pressure check. Warm up the engine approximately 2,000 RPMs and 15 inches of mercury. Set power and trim is required. Okay, approach and landing with one engine inoperative. You're going to basically leave the aircraft configured not for landing until we're on short final. Keep the flaps and the gear up. If your engine's actually feathered, if the propeller is feathered, it'll be a lot easier. But if it's not feathered and windmill, and keep that stuff up until you're an absolute know you're going to land. Go around possibilities, I don't recommend it. Get that airplane on the ground. Instrument approach landing with one engine operative, it's basically the same. Go around procedures are not, you don't have a go around. That's what my DPE told me when I did my commercial multi-engine. He said you don't have a go around. You need to get on the ground, so you need to do everything you can to get the airplane on the ground, fly it the best you can. Engine failure landing, you're gonna when your runway is assured, you're gonna drop the gear, lower the flaps all the way down, and basically fly it right to the ground. Keep it maybe I don't know, 90 knots typically is a good speed. VYSE or VMC plus maybe 10 knots, just to make sure that you have good authority, and then just fly right on the runway and grease it. That's what I like to do. Okay, aeronautical decision making for the private pilot. There's several different methods. We have the PAE, which is the pilot, aircraft environment, and external factors. And the decide model is the define the problem. The E is establish criteria, consider all alternatives. I is identify best alternative, and D is develop and implement a plan of action, and E is evaluate. And then the 5 P's are the pilot, the plan, the plane, the pilot, the passengers, and the programming. So those are all good things to memorize. Maybe have a placard in your aircraft so you can just go through them in your mind and make sure you've got all your bases covered. And assessing the risk of a student to fly lesson, you'll do that as you go. As a flight instructor, you'll know if your student's going to be in good shape or not. And the factors that affect decision making are stress, life experience, and experience in flying. And that's my video for engine out cross country. Thanks for your attention.